How's it going, guys? It's me, the Tech Gamer here, with another build guide. In this build, we will be taking a look at a $1,000 budget build, probably one of the most common builds that people go after, and it just wouldn't seem right if I didn't cover that. So, let's do this. Keep in mind that the price may vary from time to time, meaning that the build may cost more or less than the original $1,000 budget. Of course, at the time of this video, it is lower than the price, and since the Christmas is well on its way, that's the perfect time to get a PC. Also, the purpose of most, if not all builds I do, is to try and achieve the best value, the most overclockability, and the most importantly, the most upgradability for the future. But with that out of the way, let's get into today's build, shall we? To start with, the processor. I had to go with the AMD FX 6350 3.9 GHz 6-core processor. It's great for overclocking, and with such a low price for a 6-core processor at only $120, it was hard to ignore it. Not only is it great for gaming, but if you do a little bit of editing as well, the 2 extra cores from the quad-core will help tremendously. Not to mention the 3.9 GHz speed for all 6 cores. As for specs, the data width is 64-bit, has 3 times 64 kilobyte instruction, and 6 times 16 kilobyte data L1 cache, has 3 times 2 megabytes of L2 cache, has 8 megabytes of L3 cache, 32 nm lithography, a TDP of 125 watts, includes a stock CPU cooler, so if you don't want to go with the custom one that we actually went with, you don't have to, and you can use the stock one. Does not support hyperthreading, and finally does not have integrated graphics. As for the CPU cooler, this one is okay, come on guys, you already know what I'm gonna go with, but for those who don't know, the Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo 82.9 CFM sleeve bearing. It says a very low price of $25, and let's face it, it's probably the best bang for your buck CPU cooler out there right now. Next up, the motherboard. Now when it comes to the motherboard, I like to keep it above $100. Usually good motherboards that pack a lot of good features and overclockability are usually more expensive. Obviously, I'm not just going for the most expensive one. I want a motherboard that has good overclockability and most importantly provides upgradability for the future. And for that I picked the Asus M5A 99FX Pro R2.0 ATX AM3 Plus motherboard. The specs are as follows, and you'll see why I picked the motherboard out of any other. So, it's the AMD 990FX chipset to begin with. It has 4 240-pin DIMMs, supports DDR3 1066, 1333, 1600, 1866, and 2133 type memory. Supports a max of 32 gigabytes of memory, which is plenty for what most people use it for. Unfortunately, does not support RAID and onboard video, but makes that up with Crossfire and SLI support, as well as, wait for it, 7 SATA 6 gigabytes a second and a eSATA 3 gigabytes a second. And finally, it has one 10/100/1000 megabits per second Ethernet and has onboard USB 3.0 headers. As for the RAM, I went with some snazzy G-Skill Sniper 8 gigabytes of dual channel DDR3 1600 memory. So you know me, and that RAM is pretty much RAM, okay? And if you're just gaming, it's pretty much alright if you roll with some cheap RAM. It's not like it will affect your gaming performance anyways. But this time, not only was it cheap, but the G-Skill Sniper is just insanely sexy. I mean, it looks so good that you'll be showing that off to your friends instead of your graphics card. So for the specs, obviously it's a 240-pin DIMM that, pretty much matches up with the motherboard. It has a CAS of 9, has voltage of 1.5 volts, has a heat spreader, and finally does not have ECC, and it is not registered. The storage isn't surprising either. Seriously guys, who asks what storage? Obviously for the SSD, I will have to just pick the Samsung 850 EVO series 250GB 2.5 inch, and for the main storage it's none other than the Western Digital Caviar Blue 1TB 3.5 inch 7200 RPM hard drive. Nothing much to say about these other than about the SSD, which it's a lot of storage and speed for such a low price. In fact, it's like $90. Crazy, I know. Moving on to the brunt of the force, we have the graphics card, which is none other than the EVGA GeForce GTX 970 4GB F the world ACX 2.0 video card. This card is technically overkill for 1080, but it's actually considered a 1440p card rather than a 1080. But since this build is going to be as much towards future compatibility, or I would say best value, it wouldn't be surprising to call this overkill. It was either this and have a 6-core AMD processor, which we have, or dub this down to a 290 or something like that and have the i5 4690K. And the choice was easy. Since the graphics card is what's going to be pushing your games the hardest, it was important to have the best value in the graphics card. As for the case, I've used this in many builds, and I will use this throughout all or most of my builds, and that is the Corsair 200R ATX mid-tower case. One thing I looked for in this case, or in cases in general, is space for high-end video cards. The Corsair 200R does the perfect job. Not only that, but cable management is extremely easy as well, making this one of the best cases I've ever seen. For the power supply, 500 watts was actually quite plenty, so I decided to go with the Corsair CX 500 watt, 80 plus bronze certified semi-modular ATX power supply. It was very cheap at $50, and it's great for the current system, so why not? For the optical drive, I went with the cheapest option, which was only at like $13, and that was the Elite-On IHDS 118 04 DVD/CD drive. Since the optical drive isn't as important and that you really only need it for operating systems and other games, I decided it would just be best if we went with something that didn't gobble down the budget. Speaking of operating systems, I also decided to go with Windows 10 Home 64-bit for all you people who are wondering. Anyways guys, that is about it for today's build. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and let me know in the comments section below what build you want to see next. But with that out of the way, I will see you guys all next time. Peace.